Can you hear me okay? Hello. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing, Robert?
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Doing all right. Can you hear
Hey,
me now?
yes, yes, I can hear and see. It's all there.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
very
assuming
good.
you can hear me, you can see me. I cannot
Yes.
hear you.
Okay. Let's
That might be a volume thing. Let me see.
hello, hello, hello.
There we go. I can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
Robert, you look good. You
Thank
look
you.
fantastic. You had the word stress in your one of your emails recently. I thought, oh, I hope he's doing okay, but you look fine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
been a trip. So
Yeah.
we're much happier now. So
But
yeah, I was apparently moving countries and uprooting your life and everything has some stress points, even if you're not feeling it at the time. So
yeah, okay, right. It's a big decision, and a lot of unknowns are involved, and you don't know until you get there, right?
yeah, yeah. And like for us, it was even we were having fun. We're going around. Um, you know, we like chasing waterfalls here.
Oh yeah,
They're
great.
all over the place.
Yeah,
And then winter came around, and then summer came around, and then winter came around again. But I mean, summer here was just so wet this year that a lot of
sure.
those tracks they're open, but
Yeah,
you better have your gum boots and good
yeah,
luck to get
yeah,
through them.
yeah. Very true. Did you you came on the long version, which means you had time to walk around, explore, get used to things. Did you find that useful, or would you rather have do you see some benefits of the long version versus jumping in straight away?
Uh, I really liked the way that we did it. We had the luxury of being able to just kind of drop everything, come for a visit first while we were trying to get everything squared away, doing some job hunting, and we kind of knew that Colorado wasn't our place anymore, and really the U.S. wasn't a good fit for us in general. So the hope was, if we were going to go, we're going to go all in, and we're going to hop over to New Zealand, land, figure it out here. If this didn't work, we'll go to check out Australia, see if that was going to work. And then the fail safe was to go back and look at Hawaii instead. So it's that route's not really for everybody. It's not necessarily suggested for most people, but we were just in a spot where we were able to do that. So getting that option, just kind of land, settle, get a feel for the country, see how things work, find out the parts that we didn't know that we would like that we liked, and the parts that we didn't know we wouldn't like that we didn't like, and so that's gave us some flexibility there. So we have some friends that have looked over here too, and it's there's things that you see living here that you don't see on the other side, and some of that is good stuff that is better than expected, and some of it is maybe not necessarily worse. It's just a different approach for some things than you'd expect. So it's nice to have that landing in a long runway to get in, get a feeling for what this place is, and then be able to hunker down, get the kids into school, get to work, and we're a little bit settled before we're even doing that in the first place.
That's a great advantage, to be somewhat settled before you're pushed right into the first week of work, which is a lot of people doing
Yeah.
that. You mentioned about the positives and the negatives. So on balance, as I understand, where do you sit on balance? Is it a net positive with everything, or how would you?
Oh, absolutely. There's some things, my wife keeps saying it's kind of like stepping back to the 90s in some ways. In some ways, just culturally, there's pieces that we haven't been able to experience since back then. The world has changed, especially in the US, over that time period. We don't worry about the kids going to school or being safe there or anything like that. It's they go, they have fun. They have before school discos sometimes,
Hmm.
and so everyone just kind of shows up half an hour early and gets tired out before going to class. Um, it's very much more community oriented, and that's I don't have to worry about the kids if I send them out to
Yeah.
go to the park on their own. To send them with a 14-year-old and it's comfortable. I don't have to worry about what's going to happen.
In these days, I haven't been to Colorado in a long time. When I was there, I didn't have children. I never felt unsafe, but I never really tried to find, yeah. What is Colorado like today with children?
Well, you would hope it's good, but we were coming from a little town called Wellington, and even there, we were starting to have issues with even sending the kids up to play at the park, and that was only 2 or 3 blocks away, where there were older kids that would be there picking on them and everything, causing issues. A little bit before we moved, they stole kids' backpacks, set it on fire, like just a bunch of stuff along those lines, where it's not necessarily their health and well-being that's at risk, but it's also not the environment you want them to be in either. So and then there's always the other side too, where they built the new high school there with curved hallways. And curved hallways are built so there's not a direct line to shoot all the way down the hallway if something happens.
Wow.
There's a lot of considerations along those lines where you want to get away from that.
Yeah.
If you have the choice to not have that be a consideration,
Yeah.
it's a lot better. My wife says constantly that we don't have to worry about the kids going to school and what happens after that. If we go into the office, we see the people at the front desk there. We go and we see the teacher. We talk to the teacher. Whereas in Colorado, you could get into the office, and that's as far into a building as you could
Right.
get.
Yeah.
Or for the elementary school, it was even at the point where there was a little camera that was at the door. You'd buzz in and you'd talk to someone through a camera, tell them why you were there, and then if you're picking up your child, they would go and get the child and then walk them to the door, which is it's almost like a clean room in a way. There's a set of locked doors to get into the office, then another set of locked doors to get into the main school, which is great for safety, I guess. But at the same time, why are we at that point?
Yeah.
What as a society? So being here and not needing that is definitely a testament to the cultural change too.
So that's a big plus. If you had to rate that comparatively one to the other, I mean, yeah, this is sitting at, I don't know, it's definitely near 10. And then you'd look at the Colorado side of things in that area, and it's below average. It's way below 5. I guess it'd be 3 or 2, or I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah, huge gap there.
right. And it's a big change. There's also just with the kids being in school, our youngest would have been going into kindergarten in the US. But because of the age difference, she's year 2 here. So they skipped her ahead 1 year, which we were kind of worried about at first, but she's picked it up and just run with it. And so it's like, oh, well, all right. What's the difference there in the school systems too? We're definitely getting some focus on her going and running with this idea. And her preschool teacher was fantastic back in the States. We absolutely loved the teacher. She got both of our younger kids for 2 years each. So like that was fantastic. But actually getting into the school system itself and seeing her excel, seeing our middle son, he's in and he's going really well with his school. For him, it was more making friends and that emotional piece, which were very big factors for him. But he's social and he's got friends there, and it's not an issue. And then our oldest, he's going to Melville, which is, I guess, has a reputation for not being the easiest school to be in. It's a little bit rougher, I would say. The first week we were there was a fight that broke out in the parking lot, which wasn't exactly the warmest welcome, but he's found his group there. He's comfortable. He's making friends. He's not running into any issues, outside of that. And, it's been a place where he now was kind of questioning it when he got there, but he doesn't want to leave that school now. He wants to stay there and keep going. And they're actually going through a change at the end of the year and pulling in the intermediate kids too. So it'll be a bigger school starting next year, and all new staff, administration, all that fun stuff. So it's an interesting point, but he loves it.
It'll be good. It'll be nice that he's going to be in that change and he'll have friends before the change happens.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So the kids are well adjusted by now, I'd say on average. It's been a short period of time. What's a few months, right?
Yeah, well, we got over here. We've been just over a year moved. So we moved in July of last year, and we started off Auckland. We were there for a week and went, no, this isn't not. We see the sights and get out of Auckland, as one might do. Which we then went down to Taimata, down by Raglan, and we stayed out there for a month in Airbnb. I liked the area, and we're kind of figuring out the nature and everything around there, and very lowly populated or sparsely populated area, which kind of fit kind of what we were, comfortable with growing up and everything. And then we moved into a rental in Raglan. That was a longer term rental. We stayed there until December, and it was, we liked having access to the beach and everything, but it just wasn't really our scene. They're very kind of closed and siloed in very many of the social circles, and so it was a little bit more difficult to make friends there. We ended up getting things settled with work and seeing that, okay, well, I needed to be in Hamilton, and driving across that divvy every day was kind of a challenge. So getting over here, which, I mean, it's an hour drive almost getting to where we're at now. But with that, it was, okay, I'm going to be 20 minutes away from work instead of an hour, away from work. And then on the weekends too, it's kind of a little daunting to go, okay, well, if I want to go anywhere that isn't over by Raglan, I have to go to Hamilton first and then start my journey from there, or on the way back to the same thing. So once we got settled into Hamilton, it kind of really changed. And that's where it's like, okay, this is life. This is what we're going to be doing. We're comfortable in the new house. We've started going out and seeing some events and things just around the area. We've got sports going on for the kids, or dance, or whatever it is. They have different things that they can be involved in. And we found some really cool programs for the kids too. There's a group with Zeal here in town that does different classes or courses that the kids can go through. So one of our oldest just went through a photography class with them, and then they did a photography exhibit after it ended, and he was able to go there. But everyone's kind of finding their own little space and what they need to do, and to kind of make this home. So I'd say over the last 8 months, we've really been able to kind of settle in, and it's not a question so much of, oh, well, we need to figure out this place. This feels like home now. And then it's kind of looking back at the US and that life is, well, that was what it was before, but this is so much more comfortable for us now.
The adjustment all together didn't take that long, considering new friends and so on. And I guess that's going to accelerate now. If your experience is like ours, we still have probably most of our friends, at least half, have come from the time when our children were in school, because they're there together. The parents come in, and of course, all the parents with their kids in the mix, they're all, quite open, and, they're sharing some common things. Our children are studying together. That's quite an important thing to share. So making friends was easy for us at that time. And I get that it can be difficult outside of that, when you're just meeting someone and you're just a neighbor, and that's the only thing you share is being a neighbor. It is useful, but it's not as easy.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're kind of quiet when it comes to, being around the neighborhood. New Zealand, you have to be outside.
Yes,
If you're inside,
exactly.
I think you're missing out on a good
Yeah.
chunk of it. So, just like last weekend, we hopped out on the bikes and just rode across the river over to Hamilton Gardens here and checked that out. From a different perspective. We've been over there on the cars and walking before, but this was nice to take some more trails and stuff. But you see people out and about all the time. And we have, I think from my work, I have an amazing work group. I work with a group, research and development group for Livestock Improvement Corporation, and everybody there is just so welcoming and friendly and everything. And it's starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, well, we have these conversations at work and everything, and but we'll chat outside of work too, and everything, and starting to get different ideas what to do and make those further connections. So as far as like building relationships and friendships and everything, it's been so much easier, especially since you get into those institutions, you get into school, you get into work, and you start to get into the groove of life, and you start to find like, okay, well, we're just riding our bikes and we run across another family that, okay, both going to take a break at this spot and the kids are playing together. So maybe we're not going to be friends in the long term, but it's nice to stop and have a chat or something every once in a while too.
That's yeah, well said. So it sounds to me like you're quite well adjusted. Um, and those things that were on the minus side, what would you say is unexpected on the minus side that you didn't know before you came? Is there anything major that that was a big adjustment?
Um, the health system is a little bit different. So just kind of understanding that how the healthcare system works here is a good thing to understand. Like, I definitely feeling like we get the care that we need. However, it is a different process, and it is different structure than what we had in the US. So we had a very good relationship with a doctor, or a very small number of doctors that our kids would go see, and they're pediatricians, and they would see them for A through Z, or A through Z here, I guess.
Yeah.
But here it's, you go to a clinic and then you'll see whoever it is that's there for urgent care, or you're signing up to schedule an appointment out, which can take quite a bit of time right now. They are hurting for staffing issues right now, and it's definitely different. But at the same time, we're feeling much better as far as if we do have prescriptions and that kind of stuff, we're not out the money nearly as much as we were. We are carrying private insurance for medical too, which it is a cost, but it's not nearly as substantial as it was in the US, and we're still saving money and have that extra protection to go to a private provider if we need to.
Yeah.
And that has been the case. There's even been some situations where you go into the doctor, they say, okay, well, do you have private insurance? And it's not a difference of the care necessarily, but it's a difference of how fast you can get in.
Right.
So that's definitely something that wasn't necessarily expected, but I would say it's more different than worse or anything. Are you
It is a different.
worried about time? Are you worried about having to mortgage your house because you had an accident or an illness or
Exactly.
something?
Yeah. No, the cost is one of the biggest ones, and the care is just different. I agree. I had a son who had appendix that was taken out, and the cost is basically zero. And then I had a friend who had a heart attack, and they helicoptered him into Wellington, and the cost was zero. It's just like, you don't find that anywhere in the world, as far as I know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had one instance where it's like, okay, I needed to go see the doctor and I wasn't comfortable with driving in. My wife was, had to stay home with the kids. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go into the doctor. We called up the line. And they're like, okay, we'll send out an ambulance. And I took an ambulance into to Hamilton, and it was fine in the end. But that was before we had subsidized care and everything. And even that was only $800 New Zealand.
Hmm.
And it's still a large chunk of money to do that. But it's nowhere near the thousands of dollars that you would expect back in the States, just from getting into a vehicle and driving a little bit.
Yeah. Sounds to me like on balance, you've gone through the great majority of adjustment, and you're enjoying some of the benefits of that learning curve.
Yeah, if you get outside of that point of, I think in the US, the mindset is more worrying about, okay, well, I can't have this happen, because if that happens, then it's going to be this much out of pocket, and worrying about that kind of stuff. And, even if it's not something that you're thinking about on a day-to-day basis, it is there as a worry, especially with having kids. Whereas here, I just don't have to worry about the kids needing medical care. They'll go in, they'll be taken care of. And, it doesn't mean that we're riskier or anything here. It's just a huge weight off your shoulders, being over here, and you pay through it, through taxes and stuff for that stuff. So you're still paying for it. You're just getting a little bit more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of things like that where it's just peace of mind being here that makes life that much easier.
Yeah.
Going back to work too, I love my old teams at my other jobs that I've had before too, but in corporate US structure, there's oftentimes questions of, well, if I have to take sick time, when are you making up that work? When are you making, how are you going to get that caught back up again and pushing that? More worrying about the work side, and the employee just needs to figure out, what are the results of them being sick or what have you. Whereas here, I've seen more of a focus, at least from my team, of, well, just go home, take care of yourself. You get healthy, make sure you are fine, and we'll make sure that things work out here. But when we're there, we're working, we're making sure we're getting our job done. But it feels like there's we have psychological safety work that we do at my job, and we have a health and safety team. My manager is actually part of that. That their focus is on making sure that we're okay physically and mentally too. And it's a very, very different point of view to have your employer supporting that, both from the relationship you have with your manager, but then also as an organization doing the same thing.
What a big observation that is when you look around the world at Asia, all the different societies, basically. I mean, we're pretty much a standalone here as far as work-life balance goes. I mean, maybe some islands do it in a similar way, maybe even more relaxed on some of the islands. But when you're looking at a nation state, like I think New Zealand is a nice, solid, but small nation state, the work-life balance is probably better than anywhere else, as far as what I've seen, at least, or heard about.
Yeah, and the wages are probably less, I mean, than you could get elsewhere. I mean, there's no other way to put that. That's just the case. When we were looking at it, though, it came down to, okay, well, there is a pay cut. I could make more money in the US, but I also have to pay for more in the US too. But also, people are here, people live here, they work here, they make good livings for themselves here. So it's all relative to where you're at. Food costs are a bit high right now. Food costs are a bit high in a lot of places right now.
Yeah.
I think we may be getting it a bit more than some other places. But it's also a way that our family can get creative, and we can stretch the food budget a little bit further by just making some small adjustments here and there, being a little open to trying new recipes and doing that. And you get used to other pieces too, where I lived in a place before where we had an Amazon warehouse distribution center 20 minutes away from the house. So I could order something before 7 p.m. one night and it'd be on my doorstep the next morning. That's not how New Zealand works. If it's in the country, it'll probably get to you pretty quick. But if it has to come here from somewhere else, it's going to take a minute. And it's just having to plan things a little bit differently. We have access to the things we need, but there's just a little bit different way of living life sometimes.
Yeah. So a lot of these things come down to the quality of life question. Are you enjoying the quality of your day-to-day, moment-to-moment life here? And would it be better in the quality sense somewhere else? The economy is one thing, but we can go to Dubai and get good economy, for example, or London or New York or something. But is that going to help you with enjoying life? You have a nicer time out, maybe more time to go outside, but is it, and that when you have those comparisons, you can start to do the trade-off game until you come back around. And a lot of people are just happy here because the quality of life is such. It's so important to have time available, health, nature, and friends or family, or both. It's a big component of things that are overlooked sometimes when we analyze.
Yeah, and there's a big piece too where New Zealand has so much packed densely here. Yeah, that was one thing, when we did get here, where we were able to go and explore and all that stuff. We ended up in Raglan. Raglan has the pancake rocks right across the bay. And so you just have some kayaks and go over there. And the interesting, it's fun to go and see that. And when we did that, it didn't cost that much for us to go and do that. That was just a day that we did it. But these were things that my wife saw on TikTok and other places where people are taking, their summer's vacation or whatever to go on a trip to see this one thing. And it's a huge thing for them to do that. And then we go down to Topo and we knock out 4 of them in an afternoon. And so, there's the density of the stuff it is here and available just to go see makes a big difference too. So I don't have to plan thousands of dollars to go across 4 states to have a hotel and everything for a few days so we can go see 1 or 2 sites. We can just decide Friday evening, hey, tomorrow let's take a drive down to whatever, we want to go see the caves down in Waitomo or something, see some glowworms or whatnot. And we just go and do it. And it's easy enough to do that. And it's cheap enough to do that where I don't feel like we're missing out on anything that we have to spend big money on to go and do. I'm sure there's a trip to Fiji here in our future at some point. But even that's not that bad, cost wise. So it's still accessible and there's still plenty of stuff that we can keep in mind, that the economic side of it isn't too big of a factor.
When we look at your workplace, I don't know so much about your current place, but I had the opportunity to get to know what you do in the past. And it's really impressive, the kind of things you were doing for your employer. The first question I would have is, they must have struggled to find your replacement.
As far as I understand it, my role kind of got broken down to a few different people.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was I trained one of my coworkers to do part of my role, and then passed some of the other stuff to some developers that were in another team, and it was a bit here and a bit there, moving things around and all of that. And I mean, some of it just you pass it off as well as you can, but it's not necessarily a guarantee that's going to continue on. I did have some people reach out after the move, asking for some help here and there, and happy to provide some
Mm,
support and
mm.
check in, see how things are going. Um, but yeah, it's that was a role where I was doing a lot more variety and just it was whatever was needed at the time. And
Yeah.
so, I was writing some Python scripts. We're going through and creating pipelines, making sure those up and running, automating them, making dashboards, doing data analysis on that stuff. And then maybe working with an outside business partner on another project, or finding a way to get some customer experience data into the system for us to both ingest. And it was kind of all over the place. But here in this role, I'm a data engineer, and it's as simple as that. There's plenty of stuff that I'll pick up and work on, and there's absolutely brilliant scientists that I'm working with that have some great questions and some great uh, projects that they're working on. I'm just happy to be able to be a part of that in some way, and be able to facilitate some of the work that they want to get done. But it's nice to be in the role now where I go, okay, well, this is the defined role. I know what I'm doing. It's very clear cut on that side. I can still go and grab additional work and help other people out with other areas that are within my skill set. And then they're really big about growing your skills and continuing to learn and bringing about more value that way too. And so I'm excited for the opportunities that are out there, that maybe it's a project that I can pick up and see if there's an appetite for it for within the team. And then if it's something that is new and something that could be valuable, then maybe I can apply some of my other skills to that too. And that's really nice to have that open door to try that out.
A lot of people from backgrounds similar as yours, where their skill sets are so diversified, they'll come into New Zealand, and at first they may feel a little bit constrained because New Zealand likes to define the role down to, let's say, a box sort of visual. If you visualize a box, you're in that box, that's the responsibilities. And although it feels like that at the beginning, you bring up a good point. You're welcome to explore outside the box. Usually in most organizations, they just want to manage within a limited number of parameters. So like that's your responsibility. Doesn't mean you can't help other people and grow.
Right. And that's one of the neat parts. We have morning tea, every day at work, where groups get together. We kind of almost shut down the department in some ways, and everyone hops over and we have morning tea together. And it's great for building the camaraderie within the group itself. But we also have conversations over morning tea too, where it's just finding out what everyone's working on, or hey, I found a cool tool that might apply, that'll help you out, or things along those lines that we can share and get an idea for what's going on, and maybe where we can even help out other people on the team. And it's nice to have that, to be able to go, okay, well, I don't know anything about genetics, outside of what I've done through school as requirements and that kind of stuff. It's nothing that I went to advanced courses for or anything. And there are some people that are there that are just absolutely brilliant in that field. And I just want to learn from them, and figure out what that is, because it's biologic coding. So it's very intriguing to see. We have the natural way of doing this, and we have the computer world at the same time, and they're related in some ways, and it's fascinating to see how it's explained and how they share that information, and how my work and what I can do applies over to that world and enables them, or to do their work. And that's we have other people that are working on the genetic side, but I've been working with some more animal information and all that stuff recently, and it's nice to see, okay, there's tangible things that are happening as a result of what I'm helping the team do too. And so I don't know. It's just all around an experience from learning to seeing practical application of stuff and actually seeing results from being there at work instead of just going and making the donuts every day.
Mhm. That sounds inspiring and challenging in a positive way. Your background is so rich. Master's degree in machine learning, AI and machine learning, project lead,
Yeah.
impacting 700,000 clients in a $14.5 billion employer, leading 7 international teams. I'm reading, obviously, I'm reminding myself what I wrote here before from your background. And you had this projects going around the world, like the time was, it never would stop. You had all this, it was an evolving project through the different time zones, through your teams. So challenging, so involving, and a lot at stake. And you had a central point there. That's why I'm not surprised you divided out your role several ways before you left, because it was difficult to centralize. But now you're here and you're finding yourself getting into a new challenge in a new space, and you're still able to apply some of your past.
Yeah, and it's there's some pieces where you stop and you look, okay, well, there's a way that they're doing something here, and there's tons of places to learn, and trying to fit into the methodology that they have for completing tasks. And there's governance and everything you need to keep in mind when working for an employer. However, there's also the option there for how do I apply my background knowledge to what we're doing now. And you might find a piece here or a piece there where you go, oh, okay, this is something that I've already done, and I have a good method of doing it, so I'm going to apply it here, and it works. And they're, at least within my team, I found people grateful for that. And you might even find something where you go, oh, this is how I did it, and it works. And someone goes, well, we have another way of doing that, and you can make a mesh of the two, and all of a sudden it's a better solution for both of you. So yeah, it's been a growing experience, but very fruitful, I believe, at the same time.
And what is it that your company does? Do you want to introduce that a little bit?
Yeah, so Livestock Improvement Corporation, it's a company very heavily in the agriculture business, dairy farms and whatnot in New Zealand, and that's a major part of the economy here. And one that's been in the news a lot lately with some of the changes and challenges that have been happening around. But there's a lot of work around breeding and just advancement of the dairy herds across New Zealand, and trying to improve that to provide the best performing cows, and lead towards that gains in that area. So whether it's cows that are better suited for the climate, or producing more milk, or more milk solids, I guess. There's a lot of things along those lines where they're trying to address those areas where farmers are needing improvement, or where farmers are concerned. Of course, if you have a cow that can produce more for less input, and be better for the environment too, then that helps their bottom line, and they're happier, and it makes the market better for New Zealand as well. So I work with the research and development team there, and they're doing all sorts of very, very interesting projects in the area. But with it, it's very, I'd say, very rewarding work, to be able to see that not only are we here, working each day towards common goals, but it has a good impact for the community, for the country, really. And really drive something that we can look forward to in a positive way.
Absolutely. If that's if you're making measurable differences in some of those things you talked about, from a data perspective, you can measure that and document it and maybe repeat it in other areas. And that's a major part of the economy. I mean, dairy's huge. We're one of the only Western countries that's still agricultural, but it's because we're so far away and we've got really good land, really good sun, a lot of water. So it seems to work out.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, just to see how integrated the dairy industry is within New Zealand. I did get a little confused at first when I got here because I started hearing about dairies everywhere, and then went, no, those are kind of convenience stores.
Yes, right.
It wasn't not quite the same thing.
No.
So getting into the dairy industry itself. Yeah, we're seeing. There's I've gone out to farm out here for one of the community days that they have, where it's a farm that's owned and run by a university and then one of the schools. And you get to go out there, take the kids with you, and go see how the farm works and everything, and how they're operating, what impacts them, what they're trying to change, and trying to be a model for other farms to be a part of, or to follow. But there's just something a bit different about it, where it's we went to what is it called, the field days up here recently, and it's a huge expo. We could have probably spent a couple days there and maybe not gotten to everything. We spent an afternoon and got through a lot of it, but it's amazing how big of an area that is for New Zealand.
Let's talk about a little bit, if you don't mind, about the process of getting work here, because it's a subject that's close to what I'm doing. And I guess the issue is always the same for everyone. How do you prepare? How do you get in touch with clients? How do you get into meetings? How do you perform in meetings? How do you position yourself for that process and then get to the end goal? We did a lot of work together, and then you were off on your own looking for things, and we did stay in touch a little bit, but for the most part you were pretty self-managed, I would say, as a client. So I haven't heard yet from your point of view, in what ways has my service helped you out? Like, was there any leverage that that you could advise for others, or yeah, so I'm wondering how did you find my services in the sense of, like, what advantage, if any, was my services in your process?
Yeah, definitely. I going through, I found it helpful, especially with doing the video stuff, and getting that kind of mock interview done and out there for everybody. I added that into LinkedIn. So I had the short version and the long version on there. I put that on my resume as well. And I did have some employers comment on that. And so one of the struggles with being out, not a Kiwi, applying for jobs in New Zealand, is that if they have a qualified candidate that is a Kiwi, that they have to take that person over you. So there's a little bit of a limitation there. So I did run into that a couple times, where it's like, okay, well, this could be a situation for me where I'd be getting a role, but because they have someone that is able to do the job, not even necessarily that they're more capable than you are or more qualified than you are, just that they fit the qualifications. They're limited on who they can select in that case. So I did talk to some people in a couple of those situations where it's like, okay, this would have been a good fit. It's just, some red tape that is blocking it. And, it's nice to have those conversations, go, okay, well, if there's something else comes up in the future, that, definitely get back in touch, and we can go from there. But it was very useful. I did get some comments along those lines. not only on the videos, but then also, just making sure that uh, I was trying to integrate myself into some of the communities and get the contacts going, get the networking going, and trying to join some of the organizations over here to meet some of the people in the industry, and trying to get applications out. I was a bit selective for how and who I was applying to. But that was a result of having that flexibility. Like I said, had a long runway where I didn't necessarily need to have a job right then and there. If it was a different situation, I would have been throwing out applications left and right wherever I could fit. However, given that we had the time to do it and there wasn't a big pressure, I wanted to be very selective with the work I was doing, who I was working for, and making sure that the environment was a good environment. And when this job popped up, it was actually, I had gone to one of the local groups and asked for some volunteer opportunities. I wanted to keep my skills sharp while I was there. And as a result of doing that and talking to some of the people in the community, they said, hey, well, there's an opening at LIC. So I ended up applying there, and that's where I'm at now. But a lot of that networking and just working, those angles as far as building up your contacts and making sure that you are putting out the applications and talking to people. I mean, I had some managers that I talked to. I didn't get the job there, but I was a contact for them. And then that grew my contacts further because I was able to network with other people that, on LinkedIn, they started reaching out to me or making connections there. So it's very much, I think, those concepts I took and ran with. It's also a bit different here. So the way that you handle an interview in New Zealand, I'd say, is a little bit different than in the US. When I was here and the interviews I did, they were very much more conversational. We went through questions, but as soon as we were able to build, a personal connection, you just make those into natural conversations. You cover the topics. And I remember in multiple interviews where the hiring manager would stop and go, okay, well, I do need to cover these questions.
Yeah.
So I think you covered this one already. Let's get to the next one. And, just for the sake of time. And in some cases it goes longer. I mean, you just get to chatting and, see how the fit is, which that I'd say in the US, I saw a lot of areas where that might be seen as unproductive time. However, it is productive. It is very much you learning the culture. It is understanding how you can have this interaction with that employer, especially if it's that hiring manager. As an employee, you get to know them as soon as you can. And if that's going to be a poor fit, then maybe it's, even if it looks like a great role, it might not be the best opportunity for you. You might find some place that makes you happier. That, I'm happy where I'm at now. The team I work for is great. My manager is outstanding. And that goes up to, even our lead scientist there. He knows my name. He's levels above me, and he still, knows my first name, and we chat, and that might not be the case everywhere.
That is the case in most places where the top guy is happy to be shoulder to shoulder, having a chat one-on-one with any one of the employees. It just doesn't matter as much here as it does. The title is just a title.
Yeah.
We have different roles. I'm a little bit disappointed that some of those employers that met with you and then decided to take someone else locally, I would think, because of the kind of background you've got, exceptionally strong, some of them would say, hold on a second. We were looking for this category, but now this other guy's come and it's widened things out. Let's rather just rewrite what we need, make another promote advertisement and get this guy in, because we're fishing, but we didn't know we had this opportunity to catch that size of fish, which, you're not going to throw away the big one and say, well, we weren't fishing for that fish, so we're going to actually, you don't know what you're going to get, is what I'm saying. And sometimes I've seen employers make a decision to readjust things and start with that new discovery.
Yeah, and I think there is also the other side of it where when I was applying to, the programs have changed a little bit since then. But if you're going through the hiring process, I came over, we got the accredited employer work visa. And at the time, that was only the 3-year. And so we were good until December of 2025, I want to say. They're making some changes now to where we should be able to extend that, I believe, 2 more years. But the hope is that we'll have a residency well before then. But with the employers, it's a process to go through, and a lot of people at that time hadn't even started going down that route.
Yeah.
With it just reopening after the COVID restrictions. And it's an undertaking to bring on somebody, and then to know that, well, potentially this is only a 3-year thing. That can weigh on them. There's the counter argument to that, where even a good local employee you pick up, and maybe they don't work out, and that's only 6 months to a year before you're having to search again. I'm sure HR managers out there know that headache, but it's less of a risk, I'd say, getting someone locally in that sense. And so that was a bit harder to do. And I did run into that argument a lot, where the employers at the time just weren't set up and weren't familiar with the program at the time.
You got your current employer and others you've met through the networking process. And so networking is where you're introducing yourself. And did you find it useful to have some content to introduce yourself, some well-prepared stuff, just to get under their nose with an email where they can actually understand you quickly?
Yeah. Within conversations, you hop in and you say, okay, well, I want to make sure I have these bullet points ready to go. Here's high level, like your elevator pitch type information, because you might not have their attention for very long. The other thing too is trying to be aware how much you're talking about yourself. When you're having a conversation with someone and not coming off as just trying to sell yourself to them all the time. It's respecting that person, their time as well. And so high level, concisely state what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. And, it doesn't even have to be anything more than that. It could just be like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And some people might even ask for more information, after that. But having that information quickly, concisely, and it could even just be something that sits in their mind, and they might come back to you later time, and then it becomes something that you can work with.
It's really about, once you open the door and have that conversation, it can lead to a role with that person, or it can lead to a reference to another, but it all starts with that personal relationship after they understand who you are a bit at some level, the top line stuff. So it's sort of like introduction, top line, conversation, and then evolution of that to somewhere. Yeah.
And it's very different in having that conversation and building that rapport with someone, rather than just, shotgunning out, here's all the business stuff, and you can lose somebody really quick that way. But you having the conversation, building a relationship, and then, working with that person, alongside, is a totally different situation.
Yeah. I've taken quite a time of you. I really appreciate this, Robert. Let's go through just a couple of top line things to get a sense of the New Zealand experience. If we would calculate your children's 1 to 10 rating, and if your own estimation, what would the average be? 1 to 10, are you happy to be here? in New Zealand versus where they came from? Are you happy with this new life? Would you say it's around the what number would you choose for the average of your children?
For them right now, I would have to say it's very positive, but I'd probably put it around an 8 just because they are kids and they're very tied to the French and the relationships and everything they had back home in the US. And I say home there in a different sense that I would have previously. It's where we came from, but I'm starting to feel like New Zealand's home more now. But they definitely like it here. They have new friends. They're starting to build that. So the more that we get into it, I'd say the higher that goes. But just being a year in, yeah, they definitely miss their friends quite a bit. We do make some attempt to make sure that they stay in contact. Time difference can be a big play there. And so there's a lot of weekend stuff that we have to time correctly and make sure that people are available for. I would say if you have kids, make sure that you have some video application, talk to the other parents that you're staying in touch with. So they can have some time and talk and share experiences. Because it's not often that you get to talk to someone across the world too. So it's definitely a good point. And they can still maintain those relationships even if they are missing them.
That's a good point you brought up for other people moving outside, because it's not just the children, it's also extended family as well could be a factor. And home, home is sort of, they say it's where your heart is, but there's some aspect about where you come from, where you identify your origins from. And you don't want to lose that.
Yeah. And, there's other pieces too that you can share and make those connections feel a bit closer, even though the distance is so far. We bought a frame for my dad back in California, and it's a frame that we can upload pictures to. He can put pictures on, and then my sister who is over in Maine, she can add pictures to it too. And so we can all share and see this together, but it shortens that distance a little bit. So we still get to talk to him, all the time. When we do call, we're usually doing a video call or something like that. But in the meantime, it's still, we can take pictures of an adventure we did over the weekend, and it pops up on his frame for him to see, and he just gets those pushed out to him.
And then how about you and your wife? Or would you say the average of your rating? By the way, I think 8 is quite high 1 year in for children especially, but I think for anyone, there's huge adjustments involved. There's housework, culture, there's a big list. Economy, yeah. But so yeah, let's do the same for you and your wife. Would you say it's similar or some in a different direction?
I'd say it's about similar. We're still kind of adjusting some things and just trying to get our comfort in for a few other pieces. We've owned our own home for the last 10 years or so. And then we moved over here and we weren't able to, right when we got over here. So we're looking forward to getting back to that point and having, our own property and everything. And it's both just that comfort of having something that's yours, not having to worry about, what a landlord's going to say or what might happen in a year whenever a lease is up or what have you. But then also it's kind of an anchor point as well to go, okay, well, this is really established and we're definitely cemented into this new life, new place and everything. So some of those pieces for us are a little bit longer term, but we have plans and we're trying to achieve those. So it might take a little bit longer, but we'll definitely get there.
One of the advantages of renting is you can explore and you can get a solid sense of all these different aspects that when you find a place, that place, it's a fixed point in a space, and what does that mean regionally and different directions? And there's a lot of things to take into account. School, work, friends, nature, and just the place itself, obviously. Maybe this could be a benefit to just looking around. With my wife, we were looking around every other weekend or so. We just look around, and we were learning quite a lot and just imagining different places. And the conversation grew to the point that we really knew what we wanted, because before it was fantasy, like, oh, we want to live, we want, what do we want? Beach access, close to town, cheap, nice big yard. I have this list is, it doesn't exist, but you don't know unless you go out there and see.
Yeah, and I really liked looking at Hamilton and this area. And there's a lot of pressure to look at places like Auckland or Wellington or Christchurch or places like that. And I definitely see why people would be drawn to those areas. But we got here, and like I said, we got into Auckland and went, no, it's not for us, and left there. Went down south a little bit more, and we talked about Wellington, we talked about Hamilton. So the idea was that we'd be in Raglan and kind of explore up and down the island. We never got further south than Topo, and realized that, well, we're using Hamilton as this hub. And so every time that we go someplace, we're hitting Hamilton, and then we're going through and finding a different direction to go out from there. It's like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense to be here. And we don't go to the beach every day. We don't surf or anything like that. We like to go on the tracks, and we like, to find the waterfalls or lakes or what have you. We do like to go to the beaches as well, but it's not necessary that we be that close to the water. And so Hamilton ended up being this great place for us, where we feel like we can experience a wide breadth of what the North Island has to offer. We can get around places very quickly, in comparison to, being out in Raglan and driving that extra hour or 2 hours round trip. And, it definitely gave us, renting up to this point, gave us this idea of, okay, well, now we know where we want to be. We're in Hamilton now, we're renting here. And now we get to see, okay, well, when we eventually are able to buy, where do we want to buy, and where do we want to put those roots down? And really, it's the doors kind of open on that. We do like a lot of different pieces. We like the area we're in right now. I haven't seen a place that doesn't really offer something.
When I look back on your I have two thoughts here. They're quite different. One thought is something about the career path, and another thought is something about your travels. I'll start with the travels, because that's sort of the fun one. I live in Nelson, and I also, like you, went to Auckland first. We also understood that we wanted to live in a smaller town, but still have access to a certain level of civilization, like a level. And so we found this place called Nelson, and we're happy here. And that journey, it was a little while. It took us probably 3 years to buy. So it's just one data point for you to just consider. Maybe since you have kids, you can maybe anchor for a while and maybe buy, and then you can consider where you would live second part of the journey, or maybe last part of your journey, or whatever. For us, this is it. We're done. We're here. Anything else we do is going to be a vacation. Yeah. But the kids went to Australia, as they do, because that's where 20%, you get immediately 20% more money, and the cost of living is the same, more or less. I mean, it's possible to group with people that in a nice house, and they can live not only cheaply, but also with more money, and that sort of thing. But they'll be back. A lot of them come back once they have a home established here with the children and the schools. And so that was the first thing, is when you're in New Zealand, just pop by. When you're in Nelson, sorry, just pop by. You're welcome. I'm glad to show you around here as well. We've got waterfalls and beaches and stuff like that to show.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, there's so much to explore that we just have not gotten to yet, and yeah, we're looking at years
Yeah,
of possibilities, as far as what's here and where to see. And your response there is, there's such a welcoming culture here. Um, you know, I I think you need to be respectful of what it means to be in New Zealand and how culture is, and it's to try to unify it under one culture. I think it'd be mistaken. It's a lot of cultures coming together under one larger umbrella, and recognizing that and seeing how that can blossom is very important. But there's this underlying tone with everybody as far as we're here together and we're trying to make it a better place, and that means as a larger society, and it also means on the smaller relationships of it's almost like an open door policy all around, which is it's really nice to see.
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's nice to see. The other thought I had, Robert, for you is specifically, probably more than most other people, is that you've got some really strong strengths, and I know it can be, no one really knows about them because they may have seen your CV, but then that's out of their mind now, and a year later they don't know. But it may, just a little friendly advice, and you may just take it with a grain of salt, but you've got the ability to lead teams, to do super client interface, to develop systems, to do all this data related stuff that creates such value on the other side. And just don't forget that, because there'll be opportunities here and there through your process at your current work, and or if you do get the opportunity to, if you find a ceiling, you can always, I don't know anything about your situation, but you've got opportunities, and just not to forget that those skills are solid. You've worked hard to make them, and they're still there. They will come out again if you want them to.
Yeah, and it's I think that with the group I'm working with, that was actually a question that came up in the interview, and it was an interesting piece that they asked about the leadership, or and how that's worked before. And I don't have any people reporting to me at work. That's not part of my role right now, but I think that they see that within the company, that they like to grow from inside. And so having that as a skill that's already established, it's nice to have that even for the people that aren't in those roles currently. And so I do see myself drawing some past experience even from other roles and other pieces where it's really finding the right tool to use at the right time, and sometimes it might not even be the one that you think of first. But if you're working with a diverse group, you're going to have a bunch of different people that have a bunch of different personalities and everything, different experiences, different comfort levels with different information, and just different people in general. And so being able to pull some of those tools from those leadership courses I've taken before, and some of those mentoring courses even, and applying those into relationship building instead, is very useful. And so looking at some of the team and going, okay, well, having some emotional intellect there, where you go understand where someone may have a need, or something, or just recognizing when they're hitting their limit on a piece and adjusting how you're performing to support them, can be a major piece. And that's all drawing from stuff that I've done in the past.
The corporate structures of the US, quarter to quarter thinking, driving things to productivity. Wow, you're like a machine in so many, in parts of Europe as well. Then you come over here and it's a different view. It's not less productive. It's just, there's a time, people are productive here, but there's a difference. It's like when it gets off to, oh, but it's like quitting time. I'll work over if I need to finish a job. That's fine. But just working for the sake of doing more and always more and just squeezing out the weekend, squeezing out the evening time together with the kids. It's really unfortunate that the US has gone down that path. I suppose it's the path of every large competitive structure where you've got big money involved and big structures making decisions. And then how do you squeeze down? Like Amazon's a perfect example. How do you squeeze down and everything so much that, you're basically competing with robots until the robots take over. But here it's a different approach. And
yeah, absolutely. There's, I do work some time in the evening, even here. But it's not because I'm doing it extra. It's because the kids had a basketball game. And my employer said, yeah, go to the basketball game. And so you go and you do those things with your kids. And then, I have the luxury of being able to make up that time a little bit later and just communicate with my team that, this is the plan for the day. But you have some people that, they may start work and then they disappear for a little bit and then they come back again. And it's because they drove the kids to school or they had a morning assembly with the kids for something. I've done that just to go see the kids get a little piece of paper as an award for school. And it's those little bits that really change that work-life balance too, where, I may have a lot of work to do, but I'll talk to, the people that I'm working on a project with and go, okay, well, this is what we need to get done. And I've got this much to do. And I've had a few times where I'm like, okay, well, I can work on it at this point and I can see if I can get to you by Monday. And like, no, you stop, take the weekend, and then we'll work on it on Monday. It's not, we don't have to finish it by Monday. Just, we know what's going on. You've explained the situation. Don't stress over it. Just start work again on Monday.
that's interesting. So you're stopped by your colleagues for your work ethic that would have applied in the US perfectly fine, but here they put the brakes on and say, no, treat yourself better first, then we'll get around to that because it's not as urgent as what you might think it is.
Right, exactly. And so, we do a lot of work and we get a lot of stuff done. And a lot of it, honestly, it comes out of passion for the people that are doing the work that we see. It's just that it is such a different mindset of making sure that you have that balance, that you're taking care of yourself and that, you're not harming yourself by trying to get things done a little bit faster or putting too much stress on yourself.
Maybe it's a human approach. Put the human
Right.
first. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've said that to a few people at work, that they kind of took it a little bit differently, that they didn't quite see how different it would be from the US in some of those approaches. But it's not so much that there's huge major changes that need to happen to get there. It's all of these little things and just having a little bit different frame of mind and perspective on how you treat the workforce, and look at them as people and not just human capital,
Human
and that
capital
changes
versus
a
people.
lot.
Yeah. Okay. So that when you have that different perspective, human capital versus humans just naturally in a relationship, there's a lot of little things that filter into the different decisions from both of those different perspectives. And it's not huge things necessarily. In the States, you might get away with driving your kid to school once or twice, but they're not going to make a routine out of it because then they have to do that for everyone, as an example.
Yeah. And the other side of it too is, well, I would say that it would be looked at as if you were hurting the team. That you're not carrying your part of the load in that sense.
Okay.
And here they, with our role, at least, it's more we'll get the work done. We get our work done, we get our hours in, and we manage ourselves. There's a lot of trust in that model, but I don't have anybody that I talk to that really complains about work. They're happy with what they're doing. They're happy to be there. We have a good time while we're there, but we work hard and we get stuff done.
Yeah. Robert, you've been very generous. I really was looking forward to this conversation. Hadn't heard from you in a while, and I jumped on the chance to talk to you. Your background is rich. You're a self-made guy, through the studies that you've done and into the higher levels of your company. It's no surprise to me that you had to delegate to multiple people, because you were doing much more than I could imagine any one person doing. And I do say that sometimes, and it tends to be from countries like the US that really, they find a talented person and then just push a lot of, or one way or another, the person ends up either accepting a lot of responsibilities. But that has been, now that's your advantage, because now you're this dynamic person with all these experiences, and you could find a fit in so many places, even such a completely different industry, service as a software as a service type thing. You moved over, and now you're doing genetics for dairy cattle. I mean, it's still big data, I guess. Would that be part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very different. Yeah, it definitely applies, and I really like to be always learning new things, and that's kind of where it comes in. And there's still a piece where I have conversations. I just had a conversation with the manager. I'm not the one doing the genetics. I'm not the one that is running this study or that study, within the group. But I do have my place, and my place is helping to facilitate all of that work. That I'm not the only one doing it either. We have a lot of people that are supporting this, but for the projects that I'm supporting, I play a part in making sure that we're successful there, and that's absolutely appreciated. And that gives me a bit more of a push to keep learning, and try to get better at those things too. But yeah, it's very nice to see that. Okay, well, I came from this human capital management area, and I was doing a bunch of different stuff, and now I've got a new role in a new industry, in a new country, for a new team, in a new job.
Yes, a new life.
And it's still. I have a team that appreciates what I'm doing, so that's been very good so far.
A successful journey.
Yes.
You accomplished it. Yeah, it's done. You have to draw the line at some point. I mean, I think you can just draw it right here. We are a success. You're done. You've got your income, you've got your expenses managed, you've got the children at school, you've got your work, life balance. You're enjoying time off work. You're enjoying time on work. It's a pretty big list, and yeah, it's good to hear. It's nice to hear that you've made that transition. It probably wasn't always easy, but you managed it.
No, there's definitely a little bit of struggle here and there, just trying to get things adjusted, get moved, and all that. And it took until the end of June, I believe it was, when we finally got our stuff.
Oh,
and,
no,
over here
just recently.
and so, yes. So I'm actually, this room was our area where we still don't have everything put away in a spot, but
yeah, sure.
We got all of our stuff moved in here and out of boxes, and started to get stuff assembled where it needed to stay.
Yes.
So there's little bits here and there, but overall I can't complain. It was a good transition, and it was a good experience for everyone.
Robert, always a pleasure to touch base with you. Look forward to, it's a long life and a healthy life and a happy life. And I guess we'll probably not have a reason to call every weekend, but we might now and then drop a line, and you'll be on my Christmas card list as a default anyway. So
it's the summer Christmas.
Yeah, Santa Claus on the beach.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture. We for our Christmas card stuff last year, we went to the beach out there in Raglan and we made a snowman, well, a sandman.
Sandman.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that's good. I like to see that. Yeah. Have a great.
All right.
ha-
You too.
Have a great day. Yeah. Take
All
care,
right,
Robert.
tranquil day.
All
Bye.
the best to you and your family. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah.